Welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and I'm here interviewing my mentor, Jyoti Wind. Jyoti, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Jyoti, we have a very special topic today, but before we open it up, I thought perhaps you would set the stage for us and create a sacred space.
I'd be glad to. Grandmothers of the East, we call to you. We give thanks for our lives, and we ask for your insights. Grandmothers of the South, we call to you. We thank you for your passion. Help us find our path, our way. Grandmothers of the West, we call to you. Teach us how to receive what's given to us, whether we've asked or whether it's just grace. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the North, wisdom keepers of the North, we call to you. Teach us how to see what we look upon and to trust our own wisdom. Grandfather Sky, we ask for your protection. Grandmother Earth, we ask for your mercy and compassion. And to that wise woman, that medicine person inside of us, we ask that being, that part of us in our hearts, to be present as well. So I have a piece, short piece. Unbeknownst to me, there are those beings who conspire to make my life an unfoldment of grace. When I realize this, my heart opens, my soul sings, and I feel blessed beyond measure.
What a beautiful way to open up our topic, Jyoti. We've spent the last couple of weeks exploring the topic of shamanism. We've opened up the mystical word metaphysics and looked upon that and how it's related to consciousness. And for some reason, those two words feel a little easier to pin down than this word grace. It's been co-opted in many different ways. And I wonder what your definition of grace is.
To me, I see grace as unexpected good fortune.
Ooh.
That nothing you can really plan for. It's kind of like sometimes divine interplay and even intercession, you could say. I was raised Catholic, and so to me, there was always the rays of light coming from Mary's hands, and that represented grace. Okay, in that way of thinking. And I'm reminded of it like when there's a sunset, sometimes a sunrise, but a sunset especially, where the rays of the sun are just pouring through clouds. You can, by the refraction of the light, you can actually see like rays of light coming to the earth. And so that reminds me of grace as well, because of that earlier association. I also think of it as the universe stepping in and giving us something. I wouldn't call it coincidence, but I would call it just unexpected mercy, unexpected good fortune.
I love that definition, Jyoti. What does it mean today with this term I hear today, grace filled? What would that mean?
Grace filled. I would think it would be, I would take it as a person being grace filled, maybe an opportunity, but as a person feeling or being seen as grace filled, that there's a certain perhaps trustingness in that person. And so they're open to what the universe has for them, to use one way of looking at it, terminology, and that they are trusting that what they need will come, that things will show up in a timely manner, that trust fills them and keeps them open, and perhaps gratitude in there as well. And so grace fills them in that sense of, when you set something in motion and you have a plan, and you have a plan for certain things to unfold, or you hope they unfold in a timely manner or in a certain way. And maybe some things do, and maybe some things come in that are just so unexpected and so full of exactly what you wanted, even more than what you kind of asked for. That to me represents grace. So maybe someone who is grace filled lives that way.
Yeah, that resonates. I also think about grace filled moments, and there's something that touches us so deeply. And to experience that, we have to be very present. So, this is a little connected to our previous conversations about being present and conscious in the moment. Can you talk about grace filled moments?
It's interesting. When I was thinking about doing this interview this morning, I was remembering I was walking across a field. It was actually adjacent to a school, and I had little kids with me, and all of a sudden, everything in that moment just felt so perfect and complete. It was like just everything was whole and perfect, and there was no emptiness, no need for anything. It was just a feeling that I felt inside of me, where everything was just whole and complete. And it just felt like grace. That's how I thought of it. That's why I remembered that example, because they stand out when they happen. They stay in your memory. And that, an ordinary day, walking across a field with a bunch of kids, and all of a sudden, the Catholics have an expression, God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. It was kind of like that feeling, that sense of everything's okay, everything's perfect as it is, no reason to long for anything or question anything. Or, I mean, it was just in that moment, everything was perfect.
What it sounds like you're describing to me is oneness.
Yes, 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 no separation.
Exactly. Exactly. That's interesting. I had a moment yesterday, and it was, I would say, unexpected good fortune, where I happened to walk out in my garden the same time these twin baby fawns were playing. And they had no mind to me. They were running circles around each other, and it took my breath away. Like, how lucky am I to be
Yes,
alive and witness to this?
Yes. Yes. And the innocence. Yes.
But that's what you're describing is that moment. And I'm wondering, Jyoti, how often we might miss those moments in our life, that they might be more available than we realize.
I think that's true. I think that's true. We go, running through our days, and we have agendas and we have schedules, and a lot of times we're going at a speed that takes our attention to just kind of fly by things and not really notice the impact or import of what we're looking at.
Mhm.
That's why when I invoke the grandmothers of the North and their wisdom, I sometimes say, give us the opportunity or the understanding to see what we're looking upon, not just glancing by it. It's interesting that you mentioned deer, because I also thought of this morning as an example of when I was in Ireland the first time, and we took this small little boat, motorboat from the land, the mainland, to this little isle that was in the middle of this huge lake, and it was known as Innisfallen, and the Isle of Healers in their mythology. It was the Isle of women healers. And we landed, and this friend of mine who does shamanic work, she opened a portal for us to walk up the boat ramp and step onto the isle. And as we all took off in our own directions, and I just headed straight back. I just felt really drawn to walk past this old yew tree and this monastery ruin that had been built much later than the original inhabitants. And as I'm walking by the ruined stone walls, all of a sudden I was going very slowly, just feeling the place, connecting with the spirits of the land, and I just happened to look up to my left, and there was a small herd of these small red deer.
Mhm.
And I felt like that I was being graced with that opportunity. And I just stood as still as I could, not to disturb them. They were grazing. There was one who's always the watcher and for the herd. And I just hung out there and watched them for a while, and then kind of went off to the right, not to disturb them. But I felt that was a moment of grace.
I really like how you use graced as a verb. That's such a beautiful term, and it explains so many moments that we have when we're awake and aware. I like it as a verb. That's really nice. Yeah. So, Jyoti, it's interesting. I feel like these last five um, recordings we've done really are building up to this topic because grace and grace-filled moments, or to be graced, it is really what we aspire to.
I think so. I could equate graced in that sense with also being blessed,
Yeah.
with opportunities that may not show up in day-to-day life, but if we're going slow enough, we catch them, we see them, or we hear them inside, because our mind isn't so busy, maybe for a moment,
Mhm.
that we actually realize something, or like that feeling that came over me, like everything was just absolutely okay, no matter what it looked like outside, no matter what was happening in the world. In that moment, everything was okay you
Yeah.
know and it's not something that I notice in my day-to-day life a whole lot. It comes to me here and there, and I feel graced when it does. I feel
Yeah.
blessed. I feel like I feel met by the universe, like I somehow I am in the right place in the right time, and I feel met and seen or received by a larger sense of things, whatever you might want to call
Mhm.
it.
being met and received and being open to
Yes.
receive.
Yes. Yes. Although I have to say, sometimes it catches me unexpectedly.
Oh, tell me.
No. Well, I don't have an example for that. I mean, the first example I gave is actually that I was with kids, and they were playing and running and yelling, and I had nothing on my mind other than maybe what's for lunch, for the day. Um, and it just caught me unexpectedly. I wasn't preparing, I wasn't sitting, I wasn't meditating, I wasn't offering prayers, I wasn't doing anything special. I was just walking across a field and it came to me.
It's interesting as you say that, I think about so that it, in some ways, it happens when we're not asking.
I think it can.
Yeah.
I think that's true because there's times where, I have a daily meditation of just sitting quiet, and sometimes that's all it is. I'm sitting quiet, I'm meeting with my racing mind and all the storylines and breathing through those things, and it's just ordinary, and I get up and go about my day. And then sometimes, which I feel are moments of grace, I have a profound experience. I feel filled with light, or I feel like all of a sudden I have an answer to a question. You could say, well, that's intuition, or that's maybe something else, but it feels like grace in the moment, or I just am visited with like a visualization that just comes to me out of my own inner recesses of my brain. I have no idea, but it feels like grace in that moment. And I'm very grateful.
You said a statement about it feels like the universe meets me. And then we've talked about this is a moment where everything feels complete. And it feels to me like it's a message from the universe saying, you are complete,
Yeah.
you're enough.
Yes.
And here's
Yes.
something beautiful to remind you of that.
Yes. Yes. I think it is a reminder, absolutely, of who we really are,
Yeah.
beyond the personality, beyond how we see ourselves, beyond even, I think, what we think we could be or who we might be. I think it's beyond that. I think it's beyond all of that, of what the mind can conjure up and think about. It's beyond the mind.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's a larger sensing of who we really are when we connect through grace, when grace is given. It's like something that's given. It's like mercy, you know, like walking away from a car accident that should have killed you. That's pure grace right there.
Right. Right. I'm thinking about folks that might be listening who may say, well, that all sounds fine, but I've never had that happen in my life. How would you help them explore that to discover that they possibly have?
Well, I think to open to grace or grace filled moments, you could just have that as a kind of background um, desire. I think we've all been hit with moments of grace, we just don't recognize them. Um, I may have talked about this before, but the universe gives us what we need. If we're around people who are kindly and giving and appreciative of life, then what we need to receive comes more quickly to us through them. It has to come through other people, usually. Although, when it's personal, like a vision or like a feeling or something, um, I don't know how to ask for that.
Mm.
I don't know what that would look like. Just being open to receiving and being grateful for what's given, no matter what it looks like. Because sometimes we have judgments about, well, I'm so glad this happened, but I wasn't so glad this happened. This
Sure.
was, like the dark night of the soul, you know. How do we be grateful for all of it? And then and it takes some work to do that. And then how do we be grateful, period? And then I think we're more open to these gifts that are given to us, or moments of grace that are given to us in our lives.
Mm.
I think it's more just being open to it. Although I can't say that's a formula, because it just comes so unexpectedly at times. And, you know,
Yeah, but there's no way we can experience it unless we're present.
I I think it makes you present also.
It brings you into the moment because of its
Absolutely.
power.
Because when I was walking across that field, I,
Sure,
I have no memory of where my mind was.
sure.
Like I said, I might have been planning lunch for kids. I might have been thinking about the next day. And then, boom, this feeling, this total feeling was with me in that moment of just absolute okayness.
Sort of like that
Absolute,
lightning bolt.
not as enervating, not as shocking, just boom, and you're just there, and you're just
Wow.
feeling the rightness of everything.
Yeah. That I like thinking about it that way, that it's not my work that's bringing me into the moment, that it's the grace that's being offered that
Yes,
brings me in.
yes, yes, yes. And what perhaps a larger intelligence, whether it's our own higher self, whether it's something outside of us, seemingly outside of us, that we are part of, but have names for, um, and pay attention to from time to time. I think that it's just something that's given. It's just something that's given, and sometimes you can even see the kindness of others as a grace.
Sure.
The things that come to you through other people that you had no idea could happen in quite that way. And somebody just says, here.
Mhm.
And it's the most perfect thing to happen in that moment. I mean, how could we think that how could we think other than not like, oh well, I deserve this, or entitlement, I'm entitled to this. It's like a pure gift in that moment that we're graced with.
And we can each do that for others.
Oh, absolutely, we can be the hands of grace for someone else.
Sure.
Absolutely. And that takes listening too.
Mhm.
Listening to what might be needed for that other person,
Not necessarily what we want to give, but what.
or what we think they should have. I mean,
Right.
that's way overstepping. But just that impetus, that moment of light, perhaps, where something dawns, or from the heart, or I can do that. I can help this person this way, perhaps, or what does this person need? And then just sitting with that and seeing what comes. And it might not have your name on it. It might not be something that you're called to do. It might be for someone else to do that.
That's a very important lesson to learn.
Yeah, yeah. Because, going back to the personality and the soul, we can't know what another person needs. Sometimes a person looks like they're suffering, and yet their soul is singing, perhaps. And it's not for us to rescue that person or to fix something or to step in there. If we feel moved, we may offer something, offer our help, offer our service. But it's not always up to us to think we know what another person needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way that we've explored this from different angles. We've talked about what grace means as a noun.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it as a verb. And then in that sense of it being a noun, that we can be grace for another.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can embody that. And sometimes it just comes to you, or it just comes upon you to be that for someone else. It's not something that you conjured up necessarily. It's just you feel the momentum to step forward or to step into something that maybe you hadn't considered quite that way before.
And that also is the universe meeting you there, right? So
Yes,
that you are, you can discern that moment.
yes, yes.
Lovely. Lots of things to ponder there, Jyoti. Anything else about grace that you'd like to share?
Um, I don't think so.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. What a rich topic, and so deep, although very simple, and that's the best.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yes, and in that sense, this has been a grace for
yeah,
me to share.
beautiful. Well, everyone, I'm sure, is receiving it as they listen. So thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Lauren.